Welcome to Don't Say Adulting,
a podcast by Grotto Network.
hosted by Jane O'Connor
And Mike Rossetti.
It's the show where I ask the questions that I want to know.
And also, I'm here too. Pink Cadillac.
No, I don't know that song.
Well,
I know.
dude.
Just a little baby.
I don't think that has to do with like
No, I know.
babiness as it does with just like pure uncultured.
Wait, did you say that's Springsteen?
Bruce, baby.
My parents didn't really listen to Bruce.
Well, you can get out. And your parents aren't welcome in my home. I'm joking.
Wow.
There was a Bruce Springsteen exhibit at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2010 when I went to Cleveland.
Yeah.
I cried because it was 2 floors of Bruce, and Bruce Springsteen just reminds me of like my mom. And it was like my first like summer like
Is that what
staying.
your mom looked like?
She didn't look like Bruce, honestly.
Sorry, that was me.
Crack one more mom joke like that, and you're definitely not welcome in my home. I will not make chicken cacciatore for you.
We weren't recording. Are we recording? We were.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wait,
I'm
we
sorry.
recorded the Pink Cadillac?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Rossetti.
Thank
I didn't
you.
mean that. That was
My mother's a
rude.
saint.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Well, what a great way to start. Don't say adulting.
Don't just say it. But honestly, please start acting more like an adult and do not insult my mother ever again.
Don't Say Adulting, a new podcast with Grotto Network.
Yes.
My name is Jane O'Connor.
And
Son,
you know my
son
mom's
of
name.
Mrs. Rossetti.
The son of mom.
Who
Mike Rossetti, whose
never seen a
mother
picture
is
of.
actually a beautiful
Never
woman.
seen a picture of, but I assume is a very beautiful
I am the
woman.
descendant of beautiful people.
Yeah.
So-
Look at him. Look at him.
Let's see. Where's my mom? I can show you my uncle. Not the most flattering picture, but
Yeah, we were talking about Bruce Springsteen because we were talking about the song Pink Cadillac because this is my segue.
those are my parents, by the way. I just would like that noted.
Aw, yes. Very, very good looking
Thank
parents.
you for
Yes.
clarifying your thoughts.
And I see the relation
Yes.
because
We
you are
look-
also a handsome fella.
Stop it. Stop. But thank you. I've been waiting for someone to acknowledge that today. I try to fish for one compliment a day. I think
Yeah.
that's a very good
Yeah,
rule of thumb.
Yeah. But we're not talking about Mike's family today, okay?
Well,
That's
not
next
anymore.
episode.
That was, honestly, this was unplanned. But just Jane was like, let me just insult.
Let me segue into the topic.
Okay,
Mike.
let's hear it. Yeah.
We are talking about
Pink Cadillac.
purchasing
No.
a used
Buying a used
vehicle,
car.
which
Yes,
could be a
that's
pink
right.
Cadillac.
Yes.
Could be a little red Corvette.
We actually recommend it.
Yeah. Do we recommend a Caddy?
Right. Are they American made? Right?
Yeah, they are American made.
Well, that's not why I would recommend it, but
That may work
I'm
against
just
my
actually
recommendation, actually.
Oh, really? I drive Ford, so I don't know.
Well, Ford is a different.
Ford
that's a
is
different
Ford.
deal. I think.
Cadillacs. Well, before we just start insulting more car corporations, yeah, I'm pro Pink Cadillac. I'm pro Red Corvette.
Yeah, well, this came up because, on our show, we like to think about the problems that plague young 20-year-olds
Like
entering
Jane.
into adulthood like me.
Mostly Jane.
Mostly me. What are my problems? Please help me. And I'm searching for a used vehicle.
Well,
I'm looking to grow up.
glad you are, because honestly, I've seen Jane ride in on a mule to work.
Tired of driving my parents' minivan
Okay, it was
around
a minivan,
town.
It was a mule. But, hey, parents' minivan. Don't knock it. Well, actually, I've never driven or ridden in a used
In a used minivan, really?
No, that's not true. I'm lying. Totally lying. I have. It just wasn't my parents.
I feel like everybody has been in a used minivan.
we
at
were
some
we were
point.
not a minivan family.
Oh, what was your family?
We had that Jeep, that Jeep Cherokee, 95 Jeep Cherokee.
Uh-huh.
I think my mom had a Buick at one point, which would flood when you went into the car wash.
Okay. So you stopped doing that pretty quick.
So that's why I'm lean into the flooded car. No, I'm joking. Just like tragic, triggering childhood memories.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We went for the Suburban. We went big.
Okay. Wow.
Went big.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do your parents drive now?
My dad. My dad has a vibrantly blue Rubicon. Sorry. I literally am going to pull like my kidney if you can do that from laughing.
Talking about your dad's Rubicon.
It's just funny. Like the guy just is like, I got a Rubicon. It's like, what? It's like, why? It's like,
I'm looking at the photo. He doesn't look like a Rubicon guy.
No. Definitely. Yeah. He's abandoned his Italian Bostonian
His
city
Italian
roots.
roots.
Yeah, it's gone for like I'm a hunter, and I live in the mountains, and I
Yeah.
will put a dead elk in the back of this car.
And you were saying earlier your mom and sister have matching cars?
My mom and her sister.
Oh, her sister.
Yes,
Yes,
they
yes.
went. They kind of do everything. Like when one of them gets one thing, the other one wants it. So I think my mom's sister got a Mini Cooper, so then my mom bought a Mini Cooper, and that's what she was driving until she took on. I think she's driving a used BMW.
Wow. See, my family went all Japanese cars. That's the route we took.
Really?
I don't think in my time on Earth, I don't think we've owned an American vehicle.
Well, BMW is what, German?
Yeah, but
And
you
then
had Buicks and Jeeps. And,
Right, yeah.
you
Mini
know.
Cooper's English, is it? British?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we've had Hondas, Toyotas. Now we have a Subaru. My
Yeah.
dad is very happy with his Subaru.
Great.
Yeah.
And that's Japanese?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think it means like I should not
wasn't
have started.
I
this
wasn't
sentence.
asking for a translation, Jane. Let's not do what you can't do here. Okay.
Yeah, and the minivan I currently drive is a Honda Odyssey.
Well, Odyssey sounds very Japanese.
Yeah, it was very Japanese. Have you seen? I saw a bumper sticker on one that said, "My other car is an Iliad."
Oh, really?
So-
Dude,
one way
people
to-
are so clever with what they do. I mean, are you a bumper sticker gal?
I'm not. I do have a little magnet.
Is it a Jesus fish?
No.
Sorry, I was joking. I figured.
It's a Maryland crab. It's a Jesus crab.
Well, I mean, he was known to dabble with the crab. Actually, do they have crabs in the Dead Sea? I doubt it.
It's probably a little too
Probably
salty.
more
The dead in the Dead Sea, I think,
maybe
really
more crawdaddy.
signifies.
I mean, something's got to live in that, right?
It's called the Dead Sea. I think nothing really lives. It's too salty.
Is that true?
Yeah, isn't that why?
Well, Kevin, no. Sorry, I knew it's salty, but like, God, nothing can live in it?
Yeah, because it's so like
There must be something that has evolved
some
to the point where it's like,
salt-guzzling
hi,
being.
well, yeah. I mean, can we look that up, Kev?
How salty is the Dead Sea?
Forget about cars. Let's talk about,
Talk about the Mediterranean.
yeah. Well, hey, I mean, Dead Sea is not on the Mediterranean. It's inland.
But it's in the Mediterranean.
It's a Mediterranean country, for sure.
Okay, no, let's get back to the topic.
No.
What is your experience with purchasing a used car?
Okay, so I must say I've used 3 used cars. The first one I inherited my parents' 95 Jeep Cherokee.
Did they make you pay for it?
No, I truly inherited.
Nice.
Inheritance.
Nice. Okay.
So no, I used that in high school. And then 2009, recession was happening, and cash for clunkers,
Uh-huh.
government initiated thing
Yeah.
where you got, I think, $4,000 if you traded in a car that was not fuel efficient. I love Jeep. However, that Jeep Cherokee was not fuel efficient. And I'm pretty sure it just leaked oil everywhere. So, yeah, we traded it in. Got the 4,000, I guess, like what, coupon, bonus,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm all about coupons. I'm all about the deal.
Groupons.
Yeah, Groupons.
You got a Groupon 4,000.
Got it 2009. At the time, fuel efficient Ford Escape,
Okay.
which was great. I loved that car.
Do you drive the Ford Escape now?
I drive a 2015 Ford Escape.
Okay.
So I moved to Ireland in 2019, and I sold that car to my cousins.
Okay.
We used the Kelly Blue Book. We found the fair price.
Okay.
$2,000
Nice.
was what it was worth at the time. So I took my $2,000 and I blew it all on a ticket. Joking. I have no idea. I invested it.
I don't know what happened to it, honestly. I lost it. Even worse.
Yeah.
I threw it in the Dead Sea.
Yeah. But,
Which
I
can't help but notice that Kevin is not looking up
Kev,
the Dead Sea.
can you make that screen bigger? Or zoom out? Like screen bigger, but zoom out.
Yeah. I don't think anything lives there. Otherwise, they'd call it the Alive Sea. Michael.
What's that? Hold on. Can you? I want to see this for myself.
See, it's called Dead. High
It's high salinity, prevents
salt, Michael.
macroscopic aquatic organisms such as fish and aquatic plants from living in it, though minuscule quantities of bacteria and microbial fungi are present. There you are. I thought it would just have to do with the buoyancy.
Oh, okay.
You know, like
Well,
things
that's
like
what
looking like they're dead.
adds to the buoyancy. But why would that mean dead? Oh, you mean like floating on the
Yeah,
water?
like dead things
Okay.
float, right?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes. Unless they're weighted down. Or
Unless you're trying to hide something.
Oh, too soon.
All right.
Just like-
Back to the... Too soon for what? What are you... This is not a true crime pod.
Next time on Don't Say Adulting. Wait, I would like to share. So I did a volunteer program for 2
Is
years.
this about cars?
Yes.
Okay.
No more about the
We should do
sea
the
and fresh waters.
Cars for kids? Never mind. Sorry.
Okay,
Go
please,
back
yeah.
to that.
So, I lived in a volunteer house. Cars were provided. One was a Buick. It was so old and unmaintained that the brakes actually gave out on the highway. Frightening.
That's very bad.
Pretty sure we could have sued somebody. And then the other one was a Subaru, or it was an S1. It was an S. It was sort of station wagony looking. Those I drove those. That's okay. That's my
the end of
car
your
story.
journey.
I did rent cars in Ireland though,
Oh, okay.
and drove on the other side of the road.
Well, my used car journey is just beginning.
Wait, so in high school, did you have to drive? Did you not drive to school, or did you take a bus?
I
What did
took
we
the
do?
bus, basically, and then when last 2 years of high school, we walked. We lived close enough to walk.
Oh, okay, that's
Mhm.
nice. Okay,
Yeah, but mostly a bus
and
gal.
then at college,
Those bus politics.
oh.
And then college, I also walked. I lived very, very
Okay.
close.
I didn't have a car in college. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was like, "Do you have a car in college?" I'm like, I used the train. I like walked and trained everywhere.
Yeah. So walking gal. But yeah, so I don't have any experience purchasing a used car. I'm on my own. My parents have disowned me, and so as part of this podcast, we're bringing in an expert.
Yeah. Well,
Fella
before that
named-
though,
okay.
sorry, introduce him, but I forgot to share my story of actually like taking the plunge and buying my own used car.
Okay.
Like,
Well,
by
we can
myself.
talk about this.
I'd
first
gladly.
before-
That's
yeah.
okay. Well, so we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, right
okay.
now.
All right.
His name is Danny. No. No.
Okay, so here's the deal. So picture it. 2019,
I'm picturing it.
June,
Yeah.
pandemic. Right? No, 2020, not 2019.
say.
Oh my God.
Did you know something?
No. No.
Mike in 2019 is like, guys.
There's going to be this massive thing that will disrupt our lives and my car purchase. No. So 2020, left Ireland, came back here, got this job, did not have my car because I sold to those cousins.
Those Irishmen.
One happened. Yes, anyway, so they do happen to be Irish. That doesn't have anything to do with so.
I've noticed you like to plug the Ireland thing, so I'm just trying to help you out.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm just trying to share my story. Okay. So moved here, didn't have a car, went to a used car place named Bleep, and showed up with two friends. We were very intimidating, so that we could bargain, and that failed. But did take it for a test run. I actually only tested the one car, and I'm the kind of guy that was like, hey, this works.
The brakes didn't
wheels
give out on the
involved,
highway.
Yeah, I mean, I can listen to music. The windows roll down.
Nice.
It's rad.
The important stuff.
Do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you're driving to this
Is
day.
it, I mean, it still is driving. Yep.
Okay.
And it takes me back and forth across the Midwest, across
Yeah.
the country, really.
Wow. That's a great success story.
I feel like I succeeded in something finally.
But I still think we have something to learn.
No,
from our
you're right.
guest.
You're right. I know Dan.
Sorry, I'm working on my transitions. That was a transition.
I'm hearing it.
Yes,
I'm ready to transition.
And today, as our expert guest, we've brought on Danny DePrez.
Not DePrez.
Not DePrez. but
Although
that is
you
how it's
could
spelled.
say, I mean, he is like DePrez of
DePrez of
buying
car
used
knowledge.
cars. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think he has, I don't know if it's his own company or his own website where he does share a lot of this info. And he's
seemed
worked.
like a company that has a website, perhaps? or-
Maybe. Could be. But I do know as both that I know a little of the background. I think he worked for Carvana for a little bit and seems to, from the website, know a lot about car
Seems
stuff.
to have like 50 cars,
Seems
right?
to, yeah.
Right. Like,
And I think he's going to have a lot to share about used car things for both me, a first timer.
he seems well versed to help you, Jane.
and Mike, who, this is maybe would be his fifth rodeo.
I just kind of want to analyze, did I do it right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Are you going to end up feeling bad, though, if he tells you?
No one can make me feel bad.
Okay. Apparently I can.
Well, Jane, you insulted my mother. That's not even this is like apples and oranges,
Okay, well, when we come back, we'll be talking to Danny, but stick with us.
And don't
say
adulting.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to Don't Say Adulting.
Don't say it.
I'm Jane O'Connor.
I'm Mark Rossetti.
And today, we mentioned this earlier, we're going to be talking about buying a used car.
Very important.
Mike and I don't know much about the process.
Well, I have bought a used car.
We don't know anything about the process. But, I just moved to a new city. We've established this many times. Yeah. And I'd like to get around. So
she's done riding the donkey around town. She's
and so we brought in our expert guest. We mentioned this earlier, Danny DePrez. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. Do you want to give us just a little bit of your background? What qualifies you to be on this show?
Totally fair question. So I am an auto enthusiast through and through. Been a car guy since a very young age. And actually have started off my career in the automotive space, starting off with a internship with Toyota Corporate. My first job out of college was with carsdirect.com. I joined this little startup you may have heard about in the news recently that's not doing too well, but was when I was there at least, called Carvana. And have also dabbled with a company called Blinker, local to Denver. And then also Fluid Truck and Car Savers. So for being 31 years old, I've definitely got quite a gambit of at least the startup world, the automotive tech world under my belts. As much as it is a career, like I said too, it's a hobby and a passion. So at 31 years old, I've owned just shy of 50 vehicles now personally.
Oh wow. My God, yeah. Jesus.
It's a little bit of an addiction, and my wife actually likes to tease me about it too, because she's also a gearhead, and even now she's like, okay, we have 5 cars right now, that's plenty, you don't need to do anymore.
Stop.
No, this is all great for us, because I have never bought a car, just fresh out of college.
Wow.
And I know literally nothing, and it's honestly kind of terrifying. I have no idea where to start with the whole process. I'm on Facebook Marketplace, and that looks scary.
I would also I'm not an expert. I think I could suggest don't.
Of course.
Yeah, so for someone like me, and for people in our audience, where would you even start in terms of researching? And what's a good place to start in terms of, I don't know, price point, what to consider for where you live, or brands? I don't know. Are there certain brands that you would recommend over others in terms of the used?
Yeah, how do you get a Ferrari for $2,000? That's what I want to know.
Absolutely. Well, trust me, they do exist. You might just get a flood damaged or a fire damaged one.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
even before researching into, specific makes, models, or brands, I always recommend to people who ask me is, number one, take a step back and figure out what your needs are. And your needs are going to go into, what is your budget? And of course, that's a top line. But I look more towards your lifestyle. And are you someone who lives on the East Coast when it's, in Southern Florida? Do you have a lot of stuff? Are you single or are you not? Do you like to go to the beach? Do you live in a mountain community? Do you have a dog? All of these will help determine more or less what's going to be crucial to you and looking into your type of vehicle. So that's actually where I would first say is number one, understand what your needs are going to be. And so going into, well, great, I know that specific to my case personally, and I guess I know I'm a little bit of an anomaly, but let's say 21-year-old Danny just got out of college in Southern California, where I went to LMU. And realized, okay, I live in Southern California. I'm single, don't have any animals, but I like the beach. But I want a little something open top, but I also like to go up to the mountains on the weekend. So what does little Danny go for? He goes for, of course, a Jeep of some sort, because a Wrangler, you can take the top off, or you can, take it on the beach, but also have a convertible, the best of all worlds. And so how do you...
That's not what I would have guessed, but sorry.
So to start off with going, all right, can I afford? I know that in my mind, it might be a Jeep, and many buyers have in their minds already a type of car they may or may not be interested in. And so the first thing I would do is actually go to a couple of different websites. Number one is Edmunds.com, and that's Edmunds spelled EDMUNDS.com. It is one of the oldest research websites. And so
is that
it'll
like a British aristocrats car dealership or something?
They were recently bought out by CarMax, so they've got a big play in the industry right now.
Wow.
But CarMax Edmunds is going to be the site where you're going to actually be able to do the most research, and then you can say, hey, look, I'm looking for this type of vehicle. I think I like Jeep Wranglers. And I know that I can most likely spend between 10 and 15. What years am I looking at? But Edmunds will give you the price range, the years that you should be looking at, and what you can expect to spend. So I use Edmunds as my basis. Then from there, what I'll actually do as well to not just limit myself is check out some car websites like cargurus.com, AutoTrader, or cars.com to go through and actually type in. And same thing I can do is figure out by category and say, all right, by category and by price range, here's what I'm looking at. And I would, of course, then from there, you can look in your specific zip code to see what's available for sale. You might find out in that area that there's another type of vehicle that catches your eye. So you go, oh, I want a Jeep Wrangler, but an older Ford Bronco could do the exact same thing. And of course, I know the Bronco's a new model, but maybe you're looking for something older. But similar types. So those are all going to be very good initial baselines where you can actually start to research what's going to figure out your needs.
Okay. This could be a dumb question, but when I've been...
no such thing.
There is such a thing.
I agree.
Come on. Yeah.
I'll prove you all wrong. No. when I'm online and I'm researching at various sites, often I'll see like the Kelley Blue Book value. Is this something that's important to consider? Yeah.
That's just for selling a car?
That's a great question and a perfect segue probably into further down the funnel and when you're looking into buying a car. And of course, once you've located what you're looking for, it's coming down to price. And to your point, Jane, the I guess the most consumer known brand in terms of pricing awareness is going to be Kelley Blue Book. They are the most well-known. They have the biggest reputation. And that's where like you said, you can start most of your negotiating. So you are correct. It is Kelley Blue Book. Okay.
All right. So that is something that's valuable to consider and is like worth noting in the search.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So Danny, at the top of your head, do you know like how much a car should be generally worth like in this moment? If I was like, oh, hey, I found a 2015 Ford Escape that's been used by someone in Canada because it came from Canada. Like, would you know how much that should cost?
Actually, yes. I could put probably a guesstimate on it if you gave me miles. And then I could also do a U.S. market adjustment because Canadian vehicles technically have to be legally imported into the United States to be resold. And so that adds an extra whole part of the equation.
If it was like 70,000 miles.
So 2015, 70,000 miles on it. You're probably still looking low 20s. Take away the Canadian, I don't want to call it a stain, but the Canadian marking, if you will. So you're probably
not a stain.
High teens,
we actually are aired
20s.
In Canada, so
and nothing's wrong with the Canadian vehicles. It's just the stigma is you have to switch the odometers and the speedometers from kilometers to miles, and there might be some very different market stipulations. So generally speaking, Canadian vehicles and even Mexican vehicles are almost identical to their US counterparts with some very, very minor changes that make them it's just looked at a little differently than a U.S. Originated vehicle.
Okay. Are you looking to sell or buy, Mike?
Well, my used car story is I bought a 2015 Ford Escape from a place in South Bend at summer 2019.
Okay.
It did come from Canada, but I guess the dealership would have dealt with all that. Like, I don't know if they bought it from them.
So you're trying to figure out if you got ripped off.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. So I think I paid, I'm comfortable sharing this with the group. I think I paid $18,000.
So I think right now you probably would have made a little bit of money on it just in the current market. Because we've seen since the pandemic has occurred, everyone's heard these little tidbits and the chip shortage and car prices. And yes, if you had bought a car somewhere between 18 and very early 20, chances are you can still get out of it for more than you paid for it if you drove less than about 20 to 30,000 miles in the last 2 to 3 years.
There you go.
Hey, it's good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay,
hey, Mike, too, if they handled if the dealer did all the legal importing, then who cares at this point if it's Canadian?
not me.
Good to know. Okay.
Okay, stepping back a little bit.
Oh, sure. Let's step back.
Sure.
Yeah, so another question before we even get to price is, like I mentioned, Facebook Marketplace or going to a dealer in town. If it's your first time purchase, will that change which route you should go? Does it matter really at all? I'm guessing it's, situation by situation, but do you have any recommendations?
Of course. No. So great question. And I think it is very personal to the buyer. And, take Jane, you, for instance, coming out of college, you're looking to see what's going to fit. You figured out your needs, you've done some homework, and you figured out based on what you can calculate your income to be, you're like, I can either have some money saved up, or I might want to finance a loan and put some money down on it, which again, it's very situational to the person, which is the route to go. But in either case, I would actually, research both pretty extensively, because there will be, the dealers tend to have more. They're always going to be, the safe haven for the quote unquote easy sale. Now, I didn't say the best sale, I just said the easy sale. And if you're someone who does want the best deal, then you might find an equivalent vehicle that could be down the street at South Bend Motors. Or, if someone locally is moving out of South Bend to Chicago and has a similar vehicle with miles, they could be a little more motivated to sell at a discounted rate because they need that car gone. And so it's being able to actually utilize both Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, as well as your main dealer websites, Car Gurus, Auto Trader, Cars.com, to research and understand, where the best place is to go. And I maybe I'm forecasting a little bit too, but I think your next question is which one is better?
Yeah.
I would
say, I feel like you're.
I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm unfortunately someone I think who prefers an easier path. I was definitely skeptical of the Facebook Marketplace just because for me, I always get really stressed about that. But my brother just last week picked up a car from a very nice couple up in Michigan.
How long's he had the car?
He's only had it for like a couple weeks, but
what? Yeah, that's what I'm like. What's the statistical likelihood of that becoming a horror story?
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, so these are some great questions. Did your brother, when he purchased the car, did he know what he wanted, found it, and then did he have the vehicle inspected at all? What was the homework that he did to find that vehicle? Do you know?
I don't know if he ever knows what he wants.
How studious is this brother?
Not very studious. I think from what I could tell, it sounds like he might have gotten lucky. But I do know he's been on the prowl for a while for a car, so maybe there's a bit more thought that went into it than I'm letting
Totally
on.
I would declare lucky if that car lasts longer than a month. That's when I'll be like, okay, it was a good deal.
I agree. I would also say too, from the private party area, when it comes to buying from Facebook Marketplace or even Craigslist, I would lean towards more, and I don't mean low end as in like lesser quality. I mean low end in terms of price, because most consumers these days do not own a vehicle outright that's going to be $15,000 to $20,000 or less. And so if they're selling it online, it's probably a sub $20,000 car, and they're going to have title in hand. And if they don't, which is also normal too, is a lot of dealers will use Craigslist and Facebook to put their inventory on just to gain we call the eyeball traction. But if you're looking to actually most likely pay cash, I would, especially if you're on a cheaper budget being post-college, so sub 20, 15, even $10,000 budget, you can find a very nice car. And if you, much like your brother, put a lot of time and effort into it, you can find yourself a good deal on these private party marketplaces. And again, this isn't to say that dealers can't also give you that same experience. It's just it also depends on, where you are, what you're looking for. I live in a snowy region, but I also have a rear-wheel drive V8 Mustang. When I bought it, I didn't buy it here. I bought it in Arizona because they don't. There's just not many of them for sale here. So, and I had to go find a dealer in Arizona that I liked and had a good price, and I did the entire transaction. Basically remotely prior to just flying down and picking up the vehicle. So to round robin that way in is to say, I would say private, there's no good or bad. It is, again, very personal. And if you have a lower budget looking to pay cash, then you can most likely get your best deal if you actually go on the private party spectrum, because you are dealing with most likely individuals who are trying to get out of it for a various amount of reasons.
Are there any red flags we should look for in a private sale, or something like the title, which you brought up? Is that something that you would want to see as on hand? Or
like if they don't let you do an inspection, it would probably be a red
flag. Great question. So 100% with every transaction, you should always look for the VIN number of the vehicle. The VIN number is a 17-digit unique identifier, and every vehicle newer than, I believe, sometime in the mid 80s has a unique vehicle identification or VIN number to it. Like Experian, which, as we all know, is one of the credit bureaus, has auto check, which is one of the two most trusted auto history report services, as well as Carfax. And I'm sure even if you don't pay attention to the car world, you've seen some commercial in the back of your brain where there's this car fox who explains about the Carfax.
Is the fox there trying to sell me a car?
Exactly. Exactly. So if you go to look at a used vehicle in person, and this applies also to dealers too, if the seller or dealer does not want to give you the VIN number, there is a red flag right there. Sometimes with private sellers who don't know the market, they think that VIN number is private. It's private to them because it's their vehicle. Whereas that's the way I counter that is say, well, your license plate is also publicly visible and your VIN number is on a very publicly viewable place on your vehicle. So there's no reason why you need to hide that. But the VIN number is crucial. And then being able to pull a history report, like I said, too, is going to give you a pretty extensive history on that vehicle. In today's world, luckily in the last 10 years, Carfax specifically has partnered with a bunch of local dealers and local repair centers. So whenever that car gets serviced, tires, battery, whatever, it gets documented with the mileage. So you can actually start to see the service history. Now, if you see a car that doesn't have any of that, it's not always a red flag because you may be dealing with a home mechanic of some sort as well. So that's not something to necessarily, it's more of a yellow flag, but just ask more questions.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
I don't think I did any of that.
Hey, and you're still on the road.
The car's still wheeling around. I'm still pushing it from Chicago to here. So.
Well, let me ask you, Mike, when you purchased your vehicle, did you purchase private party or from a dealer?
I went to I think it's called R&B dealership in town. Yeah. So I think from a used car dealership.
Okay. And they tend to, most car dealers, I know the stigma out there is that the used car dealer is the plaid jacket looking to upsell you. And, there's definitely some truth to it, or else there wouldn't be a stereotype. But in today's world, it's becoming a lot harder to be as transparent, to be less transparent about the condition of a vehicle and where it's been. So that being said, I'm sure that when you were there, they must have offered you, hey, look, here's the Carfax to go along with it. Do you want to look at it?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And Mike was like, I don't know what that is. Just give me the car.
I was like, he's just, nope, as is.
No, now thinking back on it, I must have, because how else did I know that it was once owned by a
Canadian.
Yeah,
exactly.
And like came that way. Yeah, that's true. The one thing I will say about that place, there was a little damage on the inside of the car, a little torn leather on the seat. And I was like, hey, can we dock the price? And instead they gave me a coupon to go back and get it fixed, which I think they knew that I would not go back and do. So the tear is still there. Very slight, but...
Can you still cash that in?
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't looked. But,
well, at least you have it. That's what matters.
I do. Yes. I might just stitch it myself.
Okay. Another thing that really worries me about this just scares me out of everything about adulthood is the process of taking out a loan. If, like, for example, I wouldn't be able to pay it out all cash right now, which it sounds like that would be a better way to go, a safer way.
It depends. And again, it's specific to the user's financial situation. But if you have a first job out of college, and I can speak from experience on this, I got a small loan from one of my first vehicles. And you're right, it can be a very terrifying experience if you don't know kind of the ins and outs. But that's what we're here for today, is to help put those concerns to ease.
What would you say, I guess, the process of a loan, what are some tips for that?
So when you're looking to decide, what I would also say, you have to understand, well, what can I afford? Like how much vehicle can I afford? And right now, a good general rule of thumb, and again, this isn't, I would say a blanket statement, but it's fair to use it as a foundation. If you are looking to get a loan out, don't put more than 10% of your gross income, not your net, your gross, towards vehicle. And that includes gas, registration, and car payment. So once you figure out what that number is, then you can decide, all right, I can most likely afford a car for $350 to $400 a month. 400 puts me right at the, would put me right around that 10% mark. So I can, if it's a good vehicle. So once you understand that, then you can actually go into your bank. And I'm assuming that, most people have a U.S. bank, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. They all offer a variety of different loan servicing features, including auto loans. So it's very easy to go to your local bank and just get an initial baseline of what they will approve you up to, and to get essentially a pre-qual completed. So you can almost with confidence go into a dealer and say, well, I'm pre-qualified with Chase for up to $25,000. And know that you'll be able to afford that in the back of your mind. So it's good to get, a little homework done in the background. Now, many dealers will also say, well, we can also offer you financing as well. And to that, I always say back to the dealer, go ahead. If you can beat the rate that I receive with my bank, I will go with you. But if you can only match it, I'm going to go with my bank, because I know I'm going to get the best customer experience and I know how to work with my bank.
Okay. So it's not, that's another kind of yellow flag. Like if you can get a good deal through the dealership, that's not necessarily something that's shady or bad to do.
Correct. Oh, and they, the dealers, even in today's world where they don't have a surplus of inventory and it's very minimal, they still want to work hard to gain your business. And so a lot of dealers are actually are a part of a network of credit unions. And so credit unions and banks. And what they'll do is when you go in, they will do a soft pull with your credit, and then, basically shop your information around and see which one of their banks will offer the best rate to this specific purchaser. And, that's why when and I can, speaking from experience here, I've purchased a handful of vehicles on loans, been pre-approved. When I go in, I don't talk how I'm going to pay for it. First off is figure out the price of the vehicle, negotiate the price, and then go, all right, great. So I'm partnered with this credit union. I want to use them to pay for it. And they'll go, well, we need you to fill out a pre-qual. Let's see if we can beat it. And which I say, absolutely go ahead. And I never tell them what my current interest rate is, with my pre-qual interest rate is, until they've come back with an answer, because that's going to be your bargaining chip against them. Is if you're approved for a 3.5% loan, and you tell them like, oh, 3.5%, you could have a perfect credit score and great income, but they'll say, they might only get you 3.2, when theoretically, if you had never told them, they could try to get you to 3%, because dealerships are in the money of getting quote unquote a spiff, for every quarter percentage point interest rate they can charge the user from the bank.
A spiff.
Is that the industry term?
It is an industry term. A spiff means it's basically a kickback. It's, hey, you got us a consumer to pay a little bit more per month for their loan when they technically could qualify for a little bit cheaper of a rate. And if the dealer can get the customer to agree on that, the servicing bank will then spiff the dealer. Usually it's a flat fee, and it can range from, a couple hundred to low thousand right off the bat for that customer. So you could negotiate in your mind a great deal on the price of the car. But if you don't understand what you're going to most likely get for an interest rate, it could end up coming back to bite you at the end in terms of the loan itself.
Okay.
Are you a big negotiator with dealers?
Oh, yes.
Are you
yes.
I'm imagining like open air market, just like everybody, just like.
Well, I've always been curious because I know some cultures, whether it's businesses or different countries, in terms of negotiating. Is that common in the car world and like generally?
I mean, that's what I tried to do, and that's where the guy just gave me the $40 coupon to fix the. I was like, "Hey, how about that?" He's like, "Here's your coupon, and we'll never see you again."
Yep. So I'm a big proponent of always, you never know unless you ask, and you have to have them say no at least once before I'll feel confident on agreeing to either the terms or the price, the loan, or the condition of a vehicle. And to answer your question, do I love, and most things, no, but in the car world, I love the negotiation aspect of it, because it's more or less understanding like, hey, I know what local vehicles are selling for with these similar miles. This is what I think is fair based on the condition. And it's going back and forth between, this is fair, this isn't fair. And understanding, again, there's nuances between different aspects of the actual transaction, but everything is negotiable. And I don't want you to think that, nope, this is the price as it is. I will caveat that by saying many dealer groups are going towards this is our price, take it or leave it model. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. And they do tend to offer, I wouldn't say amazing, but they'll offer fair prices for their vehicles. I've tried and said, look, here's what I think is a fair price. I think you're about $1,000 too high. And they go, too bad. We'll sell it to the next guy who walks in the door.
Okay. Is this a recent trend?
This is probably in about the last 5 years or so. It's becoming much more common to find what they call, here's the fixed price. That's it. But that's it, nothing else.
Okay.
But again, you still have the ability to negotiate on your financing should you choose to finance. That's always a piece of it as well.
So this kind of goes back to the research thing, which is if you can do your reach, if you can buy a car, if you can go back in time 6 years ago, then you really got
argue,
you really got a
or
chance.
not argue, but
yeah. Okay. And go through all those sites, know what else is in the area, then you could really, really throw the book at them.
Throw the Kelley Blue Book at them.
Throw the Kelley Blue Book.
Throw it out the door. We don't need it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. So you've figured all these steps out. You're taking out a loan. You're going private or dealer.
You're going places.
You're going.
You're ready to buy a car. Let's say you're at the dealership or you're at the private seller. When it comes to actually testing out the vehicle, going for a drive or inspecting it, do you have any tips for that, for this last leg of the car race?
Absolutely. So I would say before you actually negotiate the price, I would actually recommend getting a full gambit of the car prior to, which would just, so I'd probably insert the vehicle inspection a little bit earlier up in the funnel, but still it's just as crucial to actually get the transaction to occur, depending on the quality of the vehicle itself. So to answer your question, the necessity for every vehicle, I would say over around $5,000 or so. And the reason I say this is because in today's market, a $5,000 car is going to have a handful of little things that it might need. And they can be very minor, from just it's due for, just random services due to age, and it's nothing detrimental.
Yeah.
But
or it could be a flooded Ferrari.
I mean,
exactly. Or it could be your flood or fire damage Ferrari. But when I'm looking at a vehicle, there's a handful of different things that I will look at. And this does apply to every vehicle over the gambit. Is number one, on that Carfax report, where did the vehicle come from? And the big reason being is that the vehicle came from East Coast, which also includes part of Indiana. That is what we call the Rust Belt. So that is where salt is used on the roads, and salt is not kind to vehicle frames. It just ages vehicles a lot quicker. And so it can, over the life of the vehicle, help deteriorate specifically the frames and a lot of metal components under the vehicle at a quicker rate, if not properly maintained. So it's not uncommon to see a lot more surface rust on East Coast vehicles versus their West Coast counterparts. So, and again, not a deal breaker, just something to pay attention to is, all right, this car has been on the East Coast. Has it been how does the frame look? Does the frame look okay? Is the body rusted? Is it not? Because again, that also indicates who took care of it. Once you take a look and where was it from, I would also, like I said, too, see if there's service history on the vehicle. So if there's Carfax, like I said, if they did get it serviced at some big names, what's the history report on it? If they didn't, does the dealer or private seller have any of the paperwork from that was done, one way or the other? The other little nitpicky things I do too is check out, do all 4 tires match? Because if they don't match, something could have happened. There could have been a curb. It just presents a lot of questions. And then big one that people don't necessarily pay attention to too is how do the panels line up on all of on the vehicle itself? Are they a little kinked? Are they a little crooked? Because that's an indication of whether the vehicle could have been in a minor accident and then repaired poorly and then not reported to a body shop or a police report. Ergo, the Carfax does not show any prior damages when someone went down, you slid into a pole in the ice and just took it and paid $5,000 out of pocket to get the vehicle fixed by your friend who says he can do it cheaper, yeah. which does happen quite often, more than you'd expect. So those are all the first eyeball things when you drive the vehicle. Low speed is actually going to tell you more than high speed. Yes, we all look for, the high speed wobble. And that is usually indicative of either suspension or imbalanced tires, but low speed, just doing full U-turns left or right. How does that feel? Does the car make any noises? Do the brakes feel touchy? Those are all going to be just quick indicators of how that vehicle was maintained. Because usually if it's okay at low speed and there is an issue at high speed, it's probably a pretty easy fix. So even if you can't get in the highway, as long as you can do about 40 to 45 miles an hour on a test drive, you'll be able to get a pretty solid impression of how that vehicle drives.
Are there any common issues that are just like really expensive fixes that you should be wary of in a test, or like things that this is kind of a big question, but because I know a lot of things, it seems like could be easy fixes, could be cheaper, but is there something where it's just usually not worth it?
So this is actually a funny story too. My wife and I purchased a brand new vehicle for her in April this year. And ironically, the car that we were going to sell to replace it was sitting in a shop down the street. And we had to go pick it up because they were closing. And so the dealer allowed us to take any of their used vehicles that we wanted to go pick up our vehicle about 2 miles away. And so, of course, I picked out a Jeep Wrangler, and because, like why not? And within the first 5 minutes of driving over, you could just feel the back end going up and down and bouncing. And by the time we got to the repair facility, I looked in the back, and next thing, it was a blown shock and it was leaking fluid, very visible because you could see that grease was outside of it. And I won't name the dealer because that was something I do firmly believe they should have found prior to even listing the vehicle for sale, because that's a safety concern. But the biggest ones are going to be suspension components, especially for older used vehicles, because that tends to be the easiest thing to neglect on an older vehicle. I don't know why, but you'll see many vehicles over 100,000 miles on their original suspension, which is just, it's not uncommon or unsafe per se. It's just, it will actually ultimately lead to a shorter lifespan of your tires and your vehicle, and your brakes, because your vehicle is fighting itself to be planted on the road with loose suspension components. And they're not always that expensive to fix. They really are not. However, it's just something else to be wary of. That's also why we go back to saying, when you're looking at and inspecting it yourself, many dealers will also give you a copy of their inspection report, because many brand names will say, I had a multi-point inspection of my vehicle. Here's everything that we did to it, which is wonderful. And in that case, if they give me a printout, I'll take their word for it, because there's no reason they could actually botch that. However, for private party vehicles, if it's a more expensive, I would even say $10,000 to $15,000 car, it might be worth $100 and a quick trip down to a local mechanic shop and say, hey, look, I just want to complete a quick pre-purchase inspection just to make sure that we're safe.
Okay, cool. All right, we're kind of getting to the end here, but I did have a question because I feel like this was a warning I got from a lot of people when I was asking around.
What was that?
About rust on the vehicle. You mentioned it earlier.
My car's rusted.
Is it pretty rusted? Well, that was something that they said could be indicative of more problems, especially if it's rusted out on the bottom. Is that something that you would say is a deal breaker, or something that is that fixable even?
No and yes. So no, it's not always a deal breaker because there's different types of rust. And yes, it can be repaired and prevented. So especially cars that are in the Rust Belt area, you're just going to naturally see it with your 5+ year old vehicle. It's not uncommon. That's why we see it on your Ford Escape, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for
but at this stage,
I wasn't trying to scare you.
No, I'm glad. Nothing.
At this stage, a lot of it is still surface rust, just because your vehicle is still so new. If you're looking to a 10 to 15 to even a 20-year-old vehicle, that's when you really start to question the integrity of how is the frame holding up. And that's where I highly recommend you bring either an expert in who works in the industry or have an inspection completed. And again, rust itself isn't totally detrimental to it. You can actually have reinforcements welded onto certain areas that may have shown signs of starting to weaken. But as long as there's major components in each vehicle where the frame attaches to the body, and as long as those main areas are still safely, let's say I wouldn't say rust-free, but just surface rust with no structural integrity at risk, even minor body holes or body areas, while they're ugly and not desirable, they're not going to actually impact the vehicle themselves.
Okay,
so
perfect.
It's a fair warning, especially considering where you live.
Yeah.
I think mine's just surface. It's like the bottoms of the doors, really, slightly.
Very normal for that actually happens here in Colorado a lot too. If you don't, even though we don't use salt, but if it's just cold and your vehicle gets wet and you have a paint chip, it will start to surface rust just naturally.
Okay. Wow. Well, this has been incredibly informative.
I mean, I feel informed.
I'm looking forward to hearing about Jane's first purchase experience.
I feel more ready now.
What would you recommend for Jane if you were just to
looking at me?
Single, flannel, 23, a podcaster.
Living in the Rust Belt.
Probably deal with some snow. I would say a early to mid 10s. I guess. Do we say that? Do we say the 2010s? Is that a thing these days?
That sounds
I
right
do. So
I figured. I thought it was the safe way to go.
Yeah.
But mid-size crossover SUV. So your Subaru Foresters, your Toyota RAV4s, Honda CR-V. There's a good amount of them out there. They're very reliable. You can buy one with over 100,000 miles. It's been well maintained and easily expect another 100,000 miles out of it. And you can get them for easily sub 20, if not sub 15 as well.
Would you recommend the Ford Escape to Jane, or is that?
So I like the Ford Escape, especially when the rounder body styles came out. They went from the boxes, and when they got their little more sleek lines is when I really started to catch an eye for them.
Oh, interesting. I used to have a 2009 Ford Escape, which was a little more boxy, I suppose.
Sure.
I think I preferred that one.
Okay, and are you professionally recommending that Mike try to sell his car now and make a little money before it's too late?
Sure. If the one thing though is the market is starting to go down and normalize a bit, and we're seeing it in wholesale market trends, and wholesale is usually indicative of where the retail market goes, and the retail has not caught up yet. So you could most likely, if you wanted to, still sell your Escape, make some good money. The only caveat, much like the housing market is you got to buy back into the market.
Yeah,
so
I can't.
But what about the tear? Don't you want something new?
I would like
the
leather seat fixed, but no, I don't.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Danny. This was very informative.
You're very welcome. Well, if we need to do a follow-up, I'd be happy to hear about how your experience went.
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
Let's get on the books. Let's go buy that car.
Yeah, I know. Let's film us getting the car together.
Let's find that $2,000 Ferrari.
And thank you to everyone listening. This has been Don't Say Adulting.
Don't say it.
Yes. Tune in for more life advice. Thanks again to Danny, and we'll see you all next time.
Don't Say Adulting is a Grotto Network podcast produced by Jane O'Connor, Mike Rossetti, Kevin DeClute, and Josh Long. Additional production editing done by Kevin DeClute. Graphics and animation by Becky Rogers. Grotto Network is Director Javi Zubizarreta, Senior Producer Josh Long, Senior Content Editor Jesse McCartney, Art Director Becky Rogers, Senior Manager for Community Engagement Mike Rossetti, Social Media Manager Adrian Garaldi, Web Content Strategist Michaela Douglas, Producer Kevin DeClute, Associate Producer Jane O'Connor. Special thanks to our guest and Notre Dame Studios.